Now a musical selection, the Temple Ensemble.
Have been blessed in many ways. I've had some very, very special days. But of all I've had, and all I've done, still the best is yet to come. Now, worldly things, it may come and it may go, but God's rich blessing, they forever flow, and of all I've had, and everything that I have done, still the best is yet. Oh, it's got to come. Sometimes I get by myself and say, hallelujah, praise the Lord, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Now 'tis done. Don't you know that I am the Father? I'm so glad that He won. Glory, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I tell you right now, 'tis done, because the best is yet yet to come. The best is yet to come. Reach up and get your blessing. Reach up and get your blessing. Reach up and get your blessing. 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 Shower the blessing. Shower the blessing. Shower the blessing. Blessing. Shower. Shower the blessing. 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 You and you. I know, yeah, I believe that you can. Yes, you can. Oh, yeah,
Yes, 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 indeed. Yes, Lord. The best is yet to come. Oh, yes. Come on. Come on. You ought to make some noise for that. Right? Right? Just come on. Just think with me for a little bit. Just think with me for a little bit, right? Let's just sort of imagine that everything in your life is perfect. Let's just imagine that it's hard to see how things can get better, but then we tap into this consciousness that even though you are having your best can get better because there is no limit or secret to what God can do. So if you got it going all the way on, if you are turned up, as the young folks say, and everything is straight, that can get better. Now, what if you just somewhere in the middle? Like your situation, somebody asks you how you doing, you say, I'm just all right. I'm pretty fair for a square. How you doing? I'm fair to middling. If you're in middling and you want to experience your best, know that your best is yet to come. Now, since we are all New Thought metaphysical Christians in here, there's nobody in the room who is at the lower rung of the ladder, just reaching up for a handout, hoping that somebody will hold the consciousness for your healing, hoping that somebody will hold the consciousness for your relationship, hoping that somebody will hold the consciousness for your children, hoping that somebody will hold the consciousness for the bullets that keep flying up and down your block. If you're right around there, just know that your best is yet to come. And so we all have an opportunity to do better, even if we're doing stellar. Is it all right? Let's hear it for Miss Shirley Walls. The Christ Universal Temple Ensemble. The Temple Musicians. The brilliant Martin Woods. And the fabulous Monte Filon. It's the best choir on the planet. I don't care what anybody says. Just a couple quick things before I get into my lesson. Even before I do that, how you doing? How good? How you feel? How do you feel? You feel fantastic? Sometimes one of the many things that I learned from Reverend Coleman is that, every now and again, she wouldn't ask you what you think. She asked you how you feel. What's your feeling on it. Right? She wouldn't ask you sometimes it don't matter what you think. As according to Reverend Ike, feeling gets the blessing. And she would also say, if you don't feel nothing, all right, you're with me, you're tracking with me, so that's good. So just want to give you a quick recap of Panorama of Truth. I want to give you a quick recap of Panorama of Truth. Yes, let's give it up for POT. POT week actually began with continuing education session for the teachers and ministers, and I've heard a few people remark that the week just sort of gained momentum and felt better and was doing bigger and bigger things as the week progressed. So POT started with a continuing education session for your teachers and ministers. So for those of you who will be registering for JCI classes pretty soon here, know that know that the teachers who will be teaching you have the requisite licenses to teach you. All right, that's important. The session was put together by our Dean of Dean of Education for UFBL, the Reverend Alberta Ware. Let's give it up for her. The conference opened up on Wednesday night, and I just have to tell you, CUT showed up and showed out. We asked you to participate, to register, to be present, and by all accounts, you did. Right? Now, it wasn't our best, but our best is yet to come. You really couldn't take 2 or 3 steps without bumping into a CUT person who was volunteering, who was attending, who was ushering, who was serving in any capacity. So Wednesday night got off to a really great start. Our choir came down, and along with Martin Woods and Monte Filon, they blessed the conference musically in a way that was really profound, and again, just sort of set the tone for the whole conference. So you should know that for just about every day of last week, the choir was either rehearsing or performing to make sure that they could minister to you in the ways that they needed to. So let's give it up for our choir. On that Wednesday night, Reverend Carey, as only she can do, made sure that we were all present and accounted for. And then on Saturday, she gave us a principle-laden historical perspective of the legacy of Christ Universal Temple. So as the speaker for graduation, she really took us from 56 and walked us right up to present day and what the responsibility was for each and every graduate. So thank you, Mother. God bless you. Let's hear it for Reverend Carey. Reverend McDowell brought the house down on Friday morning. So you should know that Reverend McDowell does what Reverend McDowell usually does. He was dynamite. Let's give it up for him. On Friday afternoon, the people of UFBL had an opportunity to come to Christ Universal Temple and experience what was called the CUT experience. But I'm telling you that every woman and every man, to a woman or man, said to me that I cannot believe how well we were treated, how well we were received, how your tour guides just helped us to understand the history of the church. We're excited about being connected to something that big. I mean, they just didn't know how big you do it, right? So I want to give it up for everyone who participated on Friday afternoon and Friday night. Let's give it up for them. In any capacity, thank you for everything that you gave. And then Minister Farrakhan gave us a family reminder on Friday night, right? See, that's what you call a smattering of applause right there. Yeah, that's a smattering of applause. And then on Sunday, we had our healing experience. And so with the entire foundation present here at Christ Universal Temple, we had an opportunity to worship together, to experience the healing consciousness that is pervasive in this place and that is consistent with the healing experience of our founder, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. So it was a really powerful experience on Sunday. So God bless you for your consciousness in that experience. On Monday, we had our membership meeting. And at that membership meeting, the member churches of UFBL, of which CUT is a member church, I represent CUT at the membership meeting. And at that membership meeting, we were introduced to the candidate for the board of directors for the Universal Foundation for Better Living. That candidate, who was eventually accepted, is the Reverend Dr. Sheila McKeithen. So she is the president-elect of the Universal Foundation for Better Living Board of Directors. I do think it is very noteworthy that the president of our board of directors, Ruby Dancy, headed up the committee that identified and worked through that process. So let's hear it for our president, Ruby Dancy. And the Reverend Alberta Ware was a consultant on that committee. So all in all, really, really good conference. Can I talk to you? Can I have some family talk with you? I think the conference broke even or made some money, so that's always a good thing. Anytime you do anything that has some expense, you want to at least cover your expenses. I believe the conference did that, so that's a good thing. And on to the next. So now, this morning, we are talking about being aligned with divine mind. And we have, according to our bulletin, 2 powers that we're looking at this morning, the powers of understanding and will. Is that right? Yes. We have been saying that our 12 powers is a resource system to create, enhance, and change our lives, but we must condition those powers, we must condition those faculties if, in fact, we're going to get the benefit of those powers. You might recall from the creative process, the 4th step in the creative process is the development of 2 great lights, the understanding and the will. The greater light is understanding and the lesser light is will. This is important because it helps us to gain some insight into how closely, say how closely, into how closely understanding and will work together, not only in the process of creation, but in the process of enhancing, creating, and or changing your life. Understanding and will are 2 key critical powers that you have access to. When talking about understanding, understanding is spiritual intelligence. Say spiritual intelligence. It is the faculty by which we receive enlightenment and insight. It is our capacity to gain the direct perceptions of truth. So understanding, as we are talking about it here, is more than the cognitions of mind. Understanding is more than our ability to break down and identify and get beneath complex concepts. But as we're talking about it here, understanding is our ability to be enlightened, to gain insight, to understand and have the spiritually illumined consciousness that is ours when we have the mind of Christ in us. Does that make sense? According to the revealing word, there are 2 ways to get understanding. There are 2 ways to get understanding. Understanding can be gained, 1, by following the guidance of the Spirit of God that dwells within us. Or 2, understanding can be gained by going ahead blindly and living through the hard knocks life. Jay-Z had a song, actually it was a remake of the song of Annie. It's a hard knocks life for us. It's a hard knocks life for us. And so when we don't understand how it is we can use the power of understanding. We allow ourselves to go through situations, conditions, and circumstances, having struggles, suffering, having problems that we don't necessarily have to have when we understand how to move through an experience with the guidance of God. One of the things about the benefit of God as omniscience is that God knows some stuff that you just don't know. And since God knows some stuff that you don't know, and since God is unfolding in ways that we are not yet aware of, it makes good sense to tune into what thus saith the Lord before you make a single solitary move. Some of us are really arbitrary in how it is we make decisions. We almost make decisions the same way we decide what we're going to eat. I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat. But, say but, everything that you decide you want to eat, you probably should not eat. And so, if you decide who you gonna date the same way you decide what you gonna eat, if you decide who you gonna take advice from the same way you decide what you gonna eat, if you decide you're going to share the secrets of your soul the same way you decide what you're going to eat, then you are going to find yourself having some hard knock life experiences that you don't necessarily have to have. See, understanding gives us the ability to tap into the omniscience of God and to let that God mind God me. Understanding can be underdeveloped. And when understanding is underdeveloped, we find ourselves having difficulty comprehending and knowing things that are easy to comprehend and know. When our understanding is underdeveloped, it diminishes our ability to perceive the principle and receive the insight. I should say that one more time. When our understanding is underdeveloped, it diminishes our ability to perceive the principle and receive the insight. What do you mean, Reb? Here is what I mean. When my understanding is underdeveloped, then I have a difficulty seeing and leveraging principle in my experience. William Ward says it this way: when you don't understand a thing, it's because you cannot see the good in it, you cannot see the usefulness of it, you cannot see the purpose in it. So in other words, you can't see the God in it. And if God is omnipresent, with the right level of understanding, you can find God in anything. As a matter of fact, with the right vision, you can see God in anything. There's nothing like being able to see hope in a child that thinks she or he is lost. But you've got to be able to recognize God in order to pull that up out of them so that they can see it themselves. I don't know about you, but I did not always consider myself to be worthy of the ministry. And then this wonderful lady right here said to me one day in the middle of a class, I was just about wrapping up my experience with JCI, and she said, "What are you going to do next?" This woman right here. Right there. She said, "What's next for you? What are you going to do next?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "I think you should go into the ministerial training program." Now watch this. I had only had I think 5 classes at that point. 5, 6 classes. And she says, "I think you should go into the ministerial training program." Now, I don't know about you, but I'm sort of fresh to church. I'm like new to church. I'm fresh and clean to the church experience. As a matter of fact, I am the proverbial unchurched. I did not grow up in church. My first church experience was as a full-grown adult at Christ Universal Temple. So I came from the street to the church. without the ability to understand, say understand, who I was or whose I was. And so it wasn't until I encountered this teaching that says you are made in the image and after the likeness of God. As a matter of fact, I can hear Bob Mays singing it. I am made in the image of the Father. I am made in the likeness of God. And wherever I go, I want the world to know that I know He's the Father. Watch this now. But they don't give you that understanding everywhere you go. You've got to find certain places that help you get the understanding, because when your understanding is underdeveloped, you can miss the principle that says you are made in the image and after the likeness of God. When your understanding is underdeveloped, you can miss the principle that says you are divine by nature. That is how you are made. There is nothing you can do or nothing you can say that can change how God made you. When you don't understand that, you let people talk to you any old kind of way. You can't talk to the child of God any old kind of way. And the child of God has no business behaving in the old kind of way. Right? Let's keep it all the way real. And so our understanding can be underdeveloped. Our understanding can be underdeveloped. Khalil Gibran said that the pain that we sometimes experience is the result of our understanding pushing beyond the shell. So we find ourselves being in difficult situations because our understanding is expanded. Here is the thing about being in a place like this. They don't tell you this. They don't put it in any of the books. They don't put it in any of the literature. They don't tell you in the class. But the more you listen, the more it starts to get in your soul. And the more it starts to get in your soul, it starts to change you without your permission. And so where yesterday you used to go off, today you go within. And people can't understand. Sometimes they're only happy when you're sad, and so they want to push your buttons. Right? I'm mad. I'm having a bad day today. Whose day can I mess up too? And so they come start pushing on your buttons. And you used to get ready to do that thing. You want it, you got it. I'm the right one today. Oh, you got the right one, baby. That's the old you with the old understanding. But the new you with the right understanding sees that they are having difficulty with their own pain, and so they want to give it to you so that they don't have to carry it as much. Understanding is important. Understanding can also be overdeveloped. Understanding can also be overdeveloped. When you see someone who knows it all about all there is to know, that's someone whose understanding is overdeveloped. When they come across as a know-it-all, I know it all about all of it. Their understanding is overdeveloped. Understanding is useless. Say useless. Understanding is useless unless it can be applied in our daily life, world, and affairs. When you understand a thing, when you understand the principles of a thing, you can recreate that thing over and over and over again. There aren't really no secrets to prosperity. When you understand the principles of consciousness, you can create prosperity. Just ask, what is this guy's name? This birth, I can't think of him. Trump, right? You lose money, but you have the consciousness and the understanding, and so you can rebuild not the building, but from the consciousness. Does that make sense? So when Jesus says, if you tear the temple down, I'll raise it up in 3 days. He's talking about not what he's going to do with his hands, but what he's going to do with his mind. You must have the understanding of the principle in order to leverage principle for your demonstration. If you want to enhance, create, or change your life, you have to understand the principle. And you cannot wait for somebody else to get the understanding for you. See, Jesus knew what he was doing for Jesus. And so he said, because he was a great teacher, follow me. That which you see me do, you can do also. You still with me? Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's dance with will for a little while. Let's dance with will for a little while. Will is your ability to decide, to direct, and to determine. Put that in your notes. Will is your ability to decide, to direct, and to determine. Will and understanding are equally important when it comes to making decisions with intention rather than by default. And we already hit that, but you got that, right? So understanding and will are equally important when it comes to making decisions with intention rather than by default. When talking about understanding, it's important to know, when talking about will, it's important to know that will moves and directs the other powers to action. So it is your will that moves love to action. It is your will that moves faith to action. It is your will that moves strength to action. It is your will that moves power to action. You have to will for it to be done because will is your executive faculty, is that right? And so it is your will or through your will that you will begin to execute what is the will that is dominating you. Mm-hmm. That's a good point right there. I should spend a little bit of time with that. Because what you will find is that it is your will that is actually part and parcel responsible for your demonstration. Your will is responsible for your demonstration. It's your will that is responsible for your demonstration. And so we pray, God, let your will be done. And then we try to make the will of God fit into the will that I have for myself. And since the will of God cannot fit into this limited, small-minded will that I have for myself, what I find is that I have experiences that I need God to fix, but I'm the reason that they're showing up in my life, world, and affairs. I want to deal with this just a little bit because will is important. See, we see Jesus. He's in his latter days, according to the book of Matthew. He's in his latter days, and he's troubled, he says to his disciples, unto death. He's troubled unto death. And he says to Peter, James, and John, come with me. And then he goes up to this mountain. As he goes up to this mount, he begins to have this conversation with God. And he says, I like this in you, Jesus. I like it in you, Jesus. I like it in him. Because listen, Jesus ain't crazy. Jesus says, if this cup can pass by me, that's an amen right there. I don't know about you, but that's an amen right there, right? If this cup, whatever this cup is, See, in your case, the cup is that eviction notice. In your case, the cup is that slip that says they don't need you no more. In your case, the relationship is the cup is the relationships that's coming loose at the seams, and you don't understand why, because we in love. See, I don't know about you, but there are not too many people I know who want to be crucified. Nobody wants to be talked about. Nobody wants to be hung out to dry. Nobody wants to be hung so that folks can look at your errors and look at your problems and point out how many mistakes you make. Nobody wants that. Who wants that? You have to be crazy to want that. And they can even call you Christ, and you can still say, if this cup can pass by me, let it go by. But then he comes to himself, because Jesus realized that God does not have to punish Jesus in order to bless you. And he says, nevertheless, not my will. Because when you true with yourself, when you real with yourself, you know that your will is personal. And Jesus said, so he says, not my will, but thine will be done. So he let go of everything that he was holding, not so that God could use him, but so that he could have the experience he needed to have to make the demonstration that he needed to make, so that he could understand that he's got to let his will go in order for the will of God to have its way in him. I hope you hear me this morning, because you might be thinking that you can do it your way. It's the Burger King mentality. I want to have it my way. But when you have the use of will, and when you use it properly, it enables you to make demonstrations. See, when you have tapped into the will of God, you can remain persistent and passionate about the purpose that God gave you. When you understand the will of God, you can resolutely hold to the word of truth. You can remember in your soul that when it says, I will not fail you, nor will I forsake you, because sometimes the mountain is going to get high. Sometimes the valley is going to get low. Sometimes the river is going to get wide. Sometimes the things are going to be so difficult, it does not seem like you can push through. Sometimes you're going to want to stop. Sometimes you're going to want to quit. Sometimes you're going to want to give up. Sometimes you're going to say, I'm just not going to the doctor today. He keeps giving me more bad news. But God's will for you is absolute good. And so if you can just hold on to the truth, if you can just persevere and know, if you can stand in faith and use your love and exert your strength and walk in your power, if you can use your imagination to see yourself better than you are right now, what you will learn very quickly is that your best is yet to come. God bless you.